away from corruption, away from not attending to the already existing refineries we have, I think that we find ourselves in a situation where we are beginning to major in the minor and minor in the major. I'm talking about misplaced priorities.
Yes, yes.
Yes, because the basic need of the common man is not clothing. To an extent, it's not shelter, because if I call my friend that I need to pass the night in his or her house, even on the ground, my friend may oblige me. It's food. It's food, yes. And I believe that if all these things are put in place, corruption, everything is put in place and curbed.
Corruption is fighting us back in the country.
Oh Lord, we are drained right now in the country, blessing. Because if I give you 150,000 naira to go to the market to get just food stuff,
no,
you would think
when you send the money to me, once the money enters my account, I'll be like, oh, this is quite huge. But when I take that money to the market to go buy food stuff for my house, I'll feel so bad.
100,000 out of your bag, like things are not cool.
So
they should, like I said earlier, deregulation. But how ready are they to deregulate?
Exactly.
Because if they are deregulating, you find out that there will not be need for corruption, because it offers a transparent system of operation.
But you're talking about deregulation, right? We already have refineries in the country that are not working.
We do.
We're not just going to sit and let those refineries just fade off or die off. Because that's what's happening right now.
Exactly.
We already have refineries in the country, and they keep spending money. They keep spending money on, they say, oh, they're trying to make sure that they revive these refineries. They keep spending money year in, year out. Money is being, spent on these refineries, and nothing is being done. So I think that it is corruption majorly. The federal government knows what it ought to do. But they're not doing it.
We are speaking in the same line. I feel you on what you're trying to say. But when you talk about deregulation, it offers for a transparent system of operation.
Private people coming up with their own refineries?
And yes, upon that, this fight...
Because the federal government will still keep spending money on...
These already existing refineries will also be put into use, and, they will
privatized.
Begin to function.
Yes, it should be privatized.
Yes, it should also be privatized. Then all of them will begin to function, hereby offering a transparent system of operation. So even if you want to carry out your corruption, it will not work, because everybody is seeing what you're doing. It's a transparent system of operation, because right now what they are operating upon is not transparent. They tell us this and they expect us to take it hook, line and sinker. True. They tell us that and we don't have a choice but to take it hook, line and sinker. But when there is a deregulation, it offers for transparency in administration.
I support basically anything that makes the country move forward, anything that would help our petroleum industry in the country, I support it. But the thing is, what can we do immediately? Because if we're talking about deregulation, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
It's not.
I don't see private people coming up, because even Dangote Refinery, before Dangote Refinery came up with this refinery, and look at how long it is taking him to start refining products and distributing to the country. So I think that will take a long time. We're looking at a short-term solution to what we're having in the country right now, a short-term solution to the fuel scarcity and to the queues we have in petrol stations. That is what I'm looking at right now.
We find ourselves in a country that even if it's supposed to take an hour to carry out something, it takes 2 weeks to implement that thing.
Or even more.
Something that is supposed to take just a signature and probably an announcement on
they
all
drag
newspaper
it, stretch
and
it,
media
because
houses.
there are people that are benefiting.
It is stretched.
Yes.
Till they finally find out that they don't have any option than to do it. And you find out that something that can take a week can take up to 6 months. You know the country you are. So basically, deregulation should come into play. No matter how long it wants to be, as long as we have a lasting solution to the problem, it should come into play, basically.
We are talking, we've been talking, we'll keep talking, and we hope that the federal government someday will listen to us, and they will sit up and they would really, really be interested in looking at solving the mystery behind our petroleum crisis in the country, because I know that they know what they're doing. I know that there are persons who are benefiting from what is happening in the country. There are persons who are just there to eat from that avenue where it's being created for them to just siphon money and just eat. I know that there are persons like that, but really, let's just hope that one day the federal government will look at the country and have pity on the citizens and say it's time for us to work. Let's do this for the people. We will wait till that day comes. All right, let's look at our papers now. This morning we have different papers for review. We have the New Telegraph, we have the Daily Trust, the Nigerian Tribune, the Daily Independent, the Punch newspaper, and the Vanguard newspaper. We would reel out the headlines, and shortly we'll be joined by our analyst, who will come and help us dissect these issues. All right, I'll be starting with the New Telegraph newspaper. The major headline on the New Telegraph says, alleged terrorism financing others. We will shut down economy if Ajaero is arrested, NLC warns. The riders. Calls on state councils, affiliate unions to mobilize members. Asks federal government to stop winch hunting labor leaders. Ajaero gives own date to honor police invitation. And lastly, ITUC condemns ongoing intimidation of trade unions in Nigeria. You can get details of that story on pages 2 and 4 of the New Telegraph. At the top strip, we have PMS, prolonged scarcity looms as imports drops by 33%. Still on the petroleum crisis we're having in the country.
Yes,
and we have
true.
CBN, enhanced forex inflow pushes remittance to $553 million. That is on page 7. We have, at the bottom strip, we have COP29, Tinubu orders scrutiny, pruning of delegates to save 10 billion naira. That is on page 2. Edo Guba, INEC present updated voters register to political parties. That's on page 6. Appeal Court reaffirms Shaibu's reinstatement as Edo State Deputy Governor. That's on page 4. That's a win for Shaibu. And we have Nigerian arrested in U.S. for stealing $10 million unemployment benefits. That's on page 5. Probe. Expel Wike for anti-party conduct. Clark charges PDP. The riders. Accuses Damagun Anyago of being willing tools. Parties BOT meet Fubara over alleged defection to APP. Pledges to resolve party crisis. We have North now holding short end of the stick, says Umar Ado. Rider, as zones leaders meet, converses for new political, socio-economic issues. That's on page 2. And the last headline from the New Telegraph this morning. Study, diet, main risk factor for colon cancer. That is on page 29 of the New Telegraph.
All right, moving on, let's look at what the Daily Trust newspaper has for us this morning. The major story here says, concerns as 43 die of food poisoning in 2 weeks. Farmers, agric workers blame hoarding and importation of substandard items. Federal government warns against indiscriminate use of preservatives. Avoid expired products. This one is coming from the NMA. All you can find on page 4. All right, and at the bottom strip of the Daily Trust newspaper, it says, more Yobe farmers take delivery of Governor Maimala Buni's agric empowerment imputes across more local government areas. You can find this on page 17.
All right, let's check out our next paper for review of this morning, which is the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune has its major headline, NLC's 54 affiliate unions threaten mass action if, all right, the headline has it this way, police versus Ajaero. NLC's 54 affiliate unions threaten mass action if. The riders says invitation politically motivated. NLC's cancel right IGP says Ajaero will appear next week. Stop this intimidation, judicial harassment, ITC tells federal government. That is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. At the top strip, we have Appeal Court upholds judgment nullifying Shaibu's impeachment as Edo Deputy Governor. That's on page 4. U.S. announces $27 million humanitarian aid for Nigeria. That is on page 13. That is a good one. And we have Akume Edu Cardoso Fagbemi 6 others to enforce Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy. That is on page 8. Still at the top strip, we have Ondo establishes Amutekun Rangers to curb forest crime. That's on page 13. Ododo appoints 1,102 aides. And we have Enugu government set to demolish property used for kidnapping. That is on page 26. Now let's look at the bottom strip of the Nigerian Tribune. We have CBN records all-time high remittance inflows of $553 million in July. That's on page 7. 21-year-old undergraduate contracted to act as girlfriend, killed by ritualist in Kwara. Very sad. That's on page 26. We have Lekki communities. Family give Lagos government 30-day ultimatum over land acquisition. That is on page 5. Fubara denies plan to dump PDP. That's on page 2. The writer, Wike must go for PDP to survive. Clark tells Damogun in open letter. Last headline, 5 years after trial, AGF office has no record of ex-CJN on Nogen's CCT case file. That is on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, looking at the Daily Independent newspaper, the major story here says, federal government moves to enforce Supreme Court verdict on local government autonomy. Raises 10-man interministerial committee led by Akume. Implements plan to save 10 billion naira from COP29 expenses. Appeal court affirms Shaibu as Edo deputy governor. Alleged terrorism financing. Ajaero makes U-turn, accepts to honor police invitation on August 29. Still looking at the Daily Independent newspaper, it says, we don't have record of ex-CJN on Nogen CCT case file. This one is coming from the AGF. Tinubu makes fresh top appointments for DBI and NICOMSAT. We don't have verifiable data in housing sector, Minister laments. And looking at the bottom strip, it says, diaspora remittance grows by 130%, hits all-time high of $553 million in July. And at the top strip of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, it says, Rivers crisis will consume Wike, the Magum, Clark warns. And lastly, new presidential jet unnecessary, waste of resources. This one is coming from the aviation experts.
I totally agree with that headline. All right, let's look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper has as major headline, Customs Sports Rate Adoption, Duty FX rate shift 100 times in 2024. Spike prices of goods by 120%. This is not something I should laugh about, but saying that there's a shift 100 times in 2024. It's not even the end of the year yet. But that is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We have a photo speak here, says prices remain sticky over high FX rates, frequent changes and uncertainty. All right, let's look at the bottom strip of the Guardian newspaper. This one says, why environmental impact reports are failing stress tests. This is on the news analysis page 4. NNPC's OPEX salaries hit 2.9 trillion naira in 2023, up by 70%. That's on Panorama page 2. We have Appeal Court affirms Shaibu as Edo Deputy Governor, overturns Bellows ruling. That is on page 3. Don't provoke strike with handling of Ajaero's invitation. NLC cautions police. That is on news page 6. Northern leaders meet over region's future. That is on news page 30. Amid hardship, Bauchi distributes SUVs to 6 emirs. That is on the news page 30, talking about the cost of governance in Nigeria. And then we have the last headline on the Guardian newspaper, which says Tinubu foreign trips costs Nigeria 2.3 billion naira in 6 months. That is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper.
The cost of expenses.
A good one for the cost of governance in Nigeria.
Clapping?
Yeah, we're actually clap.
The cost
2.3 billion naira in 6 months.
Tell me about majoring in the minor and minoring in the major.
Let's move on to other newspapers.
All right, moving on to the Punch News headlines this morning. It says NNPC reports 9.3 trillion naira petrol imports as queues linger. Petrol subsidy gulps 3.3 trillion naira. NNPC incurs 1.8 trillion naira energy security cost. Port Harcourt, Warri Depot, receive PMS. Task force arrest black marketers. Right at the bottom strip of the Punch newspaper, it says 5 banks budget 222 billion naira for cyber security. 1 dies as Ogun hunters, herders clash. 2027, APC kicks as PDP backs call for Jonathan's return. And at the top strip of the Punch news, crude to Dangote and others. Producers decline sale of 460,000 BPD crude to Dangote and others. Forex shortage. Domestic airlines ground 42 aircraft. And lastly, looking at the Punch newspapers this morning, it says Akume Edun lead local government autonomy implementation panel.
All right, the last newspaper for review is the Vanguard newspaper. Now let's take a look at what the Vanguard newspaper has for us this morning. The major headline says, police invitation to Ajaero. We won't be silenced, says NLC. The riders are many, but I'll take them. Direct workers to shut down economy if Ajaero is arrested. As global workers groups, CSOs, others raise alarm over worsening rights abuses in Nigeria. Why Ajaero turned down police invitation, says Falana. Demands full details, nature of allegations. Says Ajaero can only honor invitation August 29. That is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. At the top strip, diaspora remittances rise 130% to $553 million in July, says CBN. That's on page 19. Police again failed to arraign protesters, says activist Adeyanju. That's on page 6. Cost of governance. We will cut 10 billion naira from COP29 expenses, says presidency. That's on page 9. Very thoughtful. And then we have 3 years on the throne. The hardest lesson I learned. This is coming from the Olu of Warri. If you want to get details of that, get it on page 23 of the Vanguard newspaper. Now let's see the bottom strip. The bottom strip has right of way tussle threatens Nigeria's telecom sector. That's on page 14. We have PFN to Tinubu. Nigerians are hungry. Hastening renewed hope agenda. That's on page 10. And then we have in sports, 2025 AFCON qualifiers. NFF still searching for coach as Bafana named squad. That's the last headline from the Vanguard newspaper. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by our analyst, Indina Mesha Calls. I can't wait for him to come on set and actually deal with these headlines that we have this morning. They're very interesting, so we'll be joined by him shortly. Please stay tuned.
Governor Sheriff, they give us more better things for Delta.
That's why yo, so na truth.
Na truth oh, this ugeli why they stay so. Yes. Governor Sheriff, they do roads.
That's why yeah.
He not only they do roads, so they also they do drainages to make sure say the roads where we go they get for Delta, no go poor. Me and you know say Governor Sheriff, they ready to give Deltas the best.
Yes. He talk now before he enter power.
As me and you they talk so, Adakbrasa road. Adakbrasa now where you take they go they meet that girl.
Which one?
That girl will say she not go fit marry you.
Okay.
Governor Sheriff don't rehabilitate at Adakbrasa road. Yes so. It's just about 1 year where Governor Sheriff enter power, so him don't start and complete different projects. Some of them he rehabilitate them.
More agenda, of course.
Yes, so.
You see, this thing when Oga Peter they talk so. Na truth, just about 1 year in office, Governor Sheriff don complete different projects and he still dey do more. As I dey road dey travel the other day, I see am say governor dey do rehabilitation for High Expressway, a 3-kilometer road.
Now, no be only that one. Recently, when I travel go see my friend for Warri South, I come see am say Governor Sheriff im don do rehabilitation overlay of Ejegba community main road down to the roundabout.
Na that one you dey talk. Me, I just dey come from Oriso. When I hear say Governor Sheriff dey do flyover and say na Julius Berger, I say make I go see with my eyes. Seeing is believing. I reach there, I saw they look. I see and say Governor Sheriff they construct flyover from PTI Junction to DSA roundabout. I said now wow, Governor Sheriff just start. He go start with legacy project so. And he dey progress so, even as we dey talk so.
More agenda.
Governor Sheriff transforming Delta.
This village Ounde, so this road now Wapa village. We thank our governor, Governor Sheriff. We make the road better for us, so we feel pass the road well now.
Brought to you by Delta State Ministry of Information.
Welcome back. Now we're joined by our newspaper analyst, engineer Meshach Oza. Good morning.
Always
Good
a
morning,
pleasure.
Meshach Oza.
Exciting.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I've been waiting for you because looking at the headlines we have this morning, you'll find them very interesting, I'm sure. The New Telegraph has as major headline, alleged terrorism financing others. We will shut down economy if Ajero is arrested, NLC warns. We have this headline in many other newspapers as well. We have it, the Nigerian Tribune captured it this way, police versus Ajero. NLC's 54 affiliate unions threaten mass action. If we have others, the Punch newspaper, okay, the Vanguard newspaper has it this way, police invitation to Ajero, we won't be silenced, says NLC. Direct workers to shut down economy if Ajero is arrested. Global workers groups, CSOs, others raise alarm over worsening rights abuses in Nigeria.
Unfortunately, I'm highly disappointed that when the executive is quiet on this, and basically the police have exhibited a high level of irresponsibility in the discharge of their duties. Because it is sickening. For the past 1 year, the Nigerian Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, and the federal government have been negotiating. Yes. Somebody that has been negotiating, have been hobnobbing with government daily. Let me tell you something. Each time, majority of these people that you see are in negotiations with government, majority of these unions, they are being monitored. Their phones have been monitored. So you are telling me that it is now that you have bent their hands to agree to 70,000 that they have started sponsoring terrorism and banditry or what have you. You see, this is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Look, we don't prioritize our objectives. We don't prioritize our policies in this government. Now, a certain Yaya Bello, as you invited him for almost 4 or 5 months now, he has not come. You could not get him. You are giving a... You know, look, there's something a lot of people don't understand. A labor leader is highly more revered. If a president comes to say, you people should sit at home, don't go to work today, if it's not in line with the constitution or it's not an historical event, people would go to work. But whether it's a working day, and the labor union and its affiliates, the labor leadership say there is no work, there will not be work. But you see, what is playing out is misplacement of priority on the part of the police, and of course then lack of stillness on the part of the unions.
Do you think this has a political undertone?
I'm coming. I'm leading us somewhere. Okay. If the labor leaders, for me, they played into the hand of government. Yes, this invitation is politically motivated, and it's related to, okay, you think you have ruffled us, let's show you that we are the executive, we can use state institutions to fight you back and all that. But I think if Labour had been firm in most of their interactions and affirmations with unions, sorry, with the federal government, they wouldn't have been like this. Now, where did they get it wrong? In their negotiations with government, they presented a force. It's a Latin word, force populi. That is, you didn't represent the people the way they ought to be represented. You go there today, you say we should go for 1 week strike. The next day, you say you have met with labor, and you didn't even tell us what you agreed on, and they'll call up the strike. Meanwhile, people have planned in line with that 1 week. That aside, now you started negotiations from 600,000. Now the government bent your hand. You agreed on 70,000 without a concrete implementation agreement. Verbal agreement is different from implementation. Implementation agreement is signing the signature that affirms that this thing should begin with immediate effect within the 36 states and the federal and Abuja. They didn't do that. Now a lot of states now are giving you the caveat until the federal government starts its implementation before they will start negotiating.
And until the consequential adjustment I expected that during that negotiation that
they would do all that.
Yes, the adjustment would be made. The list would have been made.
What they said that it's consequential agreement is ready for levels 1 to 6, but it's not from 7 above. I mean, at times Nigeria there's so much mockery in that system.
Away from the minimum wage now, what is playing out between the labor and the police? Do you really think this is a case of witch hunting? Do you think the president of the NLC is being witch hunted?
Most 90% of this kind of invitations to not just the labor union that's happening now, and to other people like we know, are always in relation to a fallout. But what the government is failing to understand, this invitation is bigger than them. Because it's going to be difficult. You saw the whole labor house yesterday in Abuja, while they were having their meeting inside, you had hundreds and hundreds of unionists outside chanting labor songs. You know that Nigerian workers, and we have not started receiving the 70,000. We're not happy. Then you are inviting the number one. So there's going to be a solidarity, not because we love Ajero, but because it's a spiteful. An injury to one is an injury to all, and the intentions of government are spiteful and contrary to the constitution. Now the guy has negotiated, Falana came out, they've negotiated for 20, they will come on 29th. And I related, you invited Betta Edu, she didn't come. You invited Yaya Bello, she didn't come. You invited a lot of other, more than 10, 15 people that they've invited, they don't come. They don't want to, they will go to court and get injunction. Now you are threatening the labor leader that you should report yesterday, otherwise you'll be arrested. It's unfortunate, but all said and done, I think it's a lesson to the unionists that you don't, when you want to eat with the agents of government and leaders in government, you eat with them with a long spoon.
Yes, very long spoon.
Yeah. Yes, okay, moving on to the Daily Trust newspaper. It says concerns that as 43 die of food poisoning in 2 weeks. Farmers, workers blame hoarding and importation of substandard items. Federal government warns against indiscriminate use of preservatives. And from the NMA, they are saying avoid expired products. Now, all of these put together, there is hunger in the land, basically. And people are trying to store food because we are in a situation whereby nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow. Nobody can come out to predict, okay, things will get better or things will get, worse. As a matter of fact, most people are of the opinion that things will even get worse than better. So what's your take on it?
Well, unfortunately, there are a lot of parameters that could be related to this narrative. Yes, the deaths are pitiable, but the truth is, now, like they said, storage processes. Sometimes a lot of people, pesticides that are used to store some of this food, become toxic after a period of time due to exposures to external forces, external weather, external forces, and all that. That is one. Then secondly, because like you did say, because of there's so much hunger in town, people don't care whether food is expired or not anymore. Some people even justify that, forget the date that's written on the can, and you can eat expired food 3 months after it's expired. There's so much hunger on the land. And there's so much vindictiveness on the land. You say herders poisoning farm crops.
Yes.
Is that poisoning? I've seen it. Herders, they poison farm crops. At times, they go to, when they pass through people's barns, they poison the yams and all that. This has been happening because they feel aggrieved that you've taken their grazing lands to become farmlands. And of course, the government is not doing anything. And most times as well, when government store grains in their silos all over the Federation. The chemicals they use in storing these grains are too concentrated. And in such circumstances, you find that people, not everybody have the same metabolism, the same body metabolism to break down chemicals and all that. Some people can be resistant, but not everybody can be resistant. So some people are very vulnerable. And we've had a lot of cases like that. And with the so much proliferation of manufacturing of insecticides, pesticides, there are possibilities as well. Mistakes can be made, home mistakes, home accidents in terms of, you wouldn't know. I mean, so many variety. But most importantly, the fact remains that people no longer care whether foods are expired or not because of the hunger in the land.
Now let's move to the cost of governance in Nigeria. We have, on the Guardian newspaper, we have two headlines. We have on page 30, says, amid hardship, Bauchi distributes SUVs to 6 emirs. Then we have, Tinubu's foreign trips cost Nigeria 2.3 billion naira in 6 months. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper.
Well, unfortunately, it's very disheartening that our elected representatives and appointed representatives all over the Federation and the 36 states, basically, and the Abuja, are people who look at government as a cash-out device for them to live the kind of life they fantasize about. And in collusion with other stakeholders within governance, it makes it easier for them to enrich themselves with taxpayers' money through in whatever capacity. And this is not a time for frivolous spending. Nigeria has the highest and most expensive democracy in the world, the highest appointed democratic aids in the world.
Yes.
And when you look at how necessary, and when you look at 90% of them are absolutely nothing.
And you mentioned, do you think we're ever going to recover from this, what we're going through in the country? Do you think there's ever going to be a time where the political actors will say, okay, we've had enough, let's begin to cut down on governance in Nigeria? Do you think it would ever happen in Nigeria? Or it's going to be a case of, you know, the cost of governance keep going high and high because we keep seeing these state governors, you know, even at the federal level, the vehicles that they get, the amount for the vehicles that they get.
Just recently, the president got a craft and it was amounting to.
Well, let's even talk about the presidential jets that the aviation industry has said is irrelevant. Why
very
get
irrelevant.
a new presidential jet?
Absolutely, very unnecessary, very irrelevant. Because when you look at it, the excuses, they said the former presidential jet that was bought by Obasanjo 19 years ago used to develop 4 when they were going to Saudi Arabia, develop 4 again when they were going to France.
But
let me tell you something.
Fixed.
The Air Force One, Air Force One, the American Air Force One that the President of America uses, and other presidents have used, has not been changed in about 30-something years.
Over 30-something.
Over 30-something years. Meanwhile, the Nigerian, in quote, Air Force One is just 19 years old.
Yeah.
You see, let me tell you something. The Nigerian political elite, they always have a way. Have you noticed, have you ever heard that when Clinton was leaving, the next president will come in that they will renovate the White House?
Yeah. Change
the
ACs,
change the
get new cars.
Buy new cars.
And money was even budgeted for the vice president's building, amounting to billions
yes.
recently.
Of course, that was what they did. Have you ever heard state government houses in America, maybe the state of Texas, that's changing as the change of state of California as Schwarzenegger was living as governor. The new governor will come. You don't hear such insane. Like, why? Because there's accountability, there's probity, there's auditing, there's transparency. Now, when you said something that is it going to be possible? Yes, yes and no. I'll tell you yes if we decide to.
Who are we? Is it the people now?
Now,
that
let me tell you why.
change?
Yes, we start from us, you and I.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times, people have been attracted. If you look at there's a digression now. People don't go to school again to say after school, I hope there will be a job. I'll look for a job. People go to school after school. They want to become politicians.
Yes.
Why? So there's a.
To study political science.
They don't need to study political science. They already have a plan.
Yes.
That when they finish, I will start from council. I want to be or get appointments. I mean, it's laughable. It is, and it's destroying the fiber of the public service and the civil service. That's why it's making the civil service more unattractive. Now, in that sense, why are people looking towards becoming politicians, because they have seen a trajectory that politics is the easiest way to loot public funds. Politics is the easiest way to become rich. Politics is the easiest way to live that fantasy life that you want to live.
Okay.
And they'll do anything to get there. And that is the division.
So when you said yes, it can be changed, what then can be done?
Yes, what can be done is that we need to strengthen our institutions. What can be done is that people should start going to jail right now. What can be done is that the judiciary must do its job. What can be done is that the police must do its job. What can be done is that when people are indicted for political, for economic and financial crimes against the state, they must follow the judicial processes to the end. They must do the time for the crime they committed. Besides that, doing the time for the crime they committed, we have a serious problem with our system here. That you see somebody that has stolen like 200 billion of pensioners' money or pension fund money or whatever, or public service money. Now it goes to court. And in the day of pronouncement of judgment, a certain judge with a caveat will now tell you there's a plea bargain, because you return 1 billion. What happens to the other billions? Or they will tell you you've been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment with an option of fine of 500 million for somebody that stole billions of naira. So there's so much politicizing of the system, and that politicizing of the system weakens the fiber of our judiciary, and the judiciary have become so compromised. So, I mean, the whole system, we need to, people should start be held accountable.
Okay, so with what you said now, it means that all these institutions need to operate independently of themselves without the control of the government.
Yes, but it's difficult because Nigeria, it's a very funny country.
It's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one, but it's not party government of looting of public treasury. It's over.
Oh, we'll keep praying for that time to come.
I hope so.
All right. Looking at the Daily Independent newspaper, it says federal government to enforce Supreme Court verdict on local government autonomy, raises a 10-man interministerial committee led by Akume, and also implements plan to save 10 billion naira from COP29 expenses.
That's what in the judgment, that you will now wait for the federal government to put a committee that will help implement a Supreme Court judgment.
What is the committee for?
What's exactly? Supreme Court is the apex court. Any judgment made by the Supreme Court is the final, is infinito. So making this statement now is a diversion. Now, if the committee now says the way it is, what the Supreme Court did is let's be flexible a little and all that. So what you see, that's where they keep making mockery of the judiciary. And the judges are not saying anything. The Attorney General is not saying anything. The Minister of Justice is not saying anything. The Chairman of the Judicial Service Commission is not saying anything. What are we talking about this?
So I was going to ask now, with what is going on, and after the court has made their verdict, and they said they want to come up with a committee, what can the judiciary do to strengthen it?
I had to read law. I love lawyers because I had a lot of lawyers around me, and I saw there was one kind of royalty about them.
Yes.
I mean, growing up, you don't see magistrates or judges in public places hanging out or drinking and all that. You rarely see them because of the nature of their work. But now you see them drinking, hanging out. I mean, there's no more remorse for the robe, no respect for the robe, the wig and the gown. I mean, it's been thrown to that regards, have been thrown to the dogs, and there's been a lot of compromise within the judicial system. Now, what has happened? Politicians killed the judiciary. Now, how did they kill the judiciary? The greed and avarice that they have in the executive has been used to infiltrate into the legislature and the judiciary. Now, what did the executive do? You see, in government, there are three arms of government: the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive, which are supposed to be independent. The essence of those three arms of government is for checks and balances. When the executive is erring, the legislature will call them to order. That is in fact, the legislature is supposed to be the strongest arm of government, because the judiciary is to implement policies, or rather to apply policies of government in line with the Constitution. Now, most times, the essence of the autonomy, of the separation of powers, is for them not to interface on either responsibilities on Constitution. But what did the executive do? Because they are in control. The executive is in control of the epicenter of the three arms of government, which is finance is the epicenter. Now, they now made sure that they gave, and because our politicians agree this, so we do respect to some of you. Some of you are good, but majority are very greedy. Majority are very selfish. All they think is about themselves. So, like James Earl Chase did say there's always a price tag. Everybody has a price tag. There's nobody. Even when you are burning, I don't want to tell you, they will give you an offer you can, even the devil, they will give the devil an offer you can't resist. And that is what the greed and avarice of Nigerian politicians is what the executive used into infiltrating. They used fifth columnists. Now, how did they get these fifth columnists? They do the appointment of judges, they appoint chairman of Judicial Service Commission, and now when they come, they give them bids, they buy jeeps for all this. So it becomes difficult. The judiciary, the executive is not supposed to buy jeeps for the judiciary. It's supposed to be autonomous on their own, fund for themselves. They have their own budget. They buy their own cars. The same thing with the legislature. They do that for themselves. But that is not what we're seeing. The judiciary have been weakened. The legislature have been weakened. It is not a collective, it's a cabal within the three arms of government to make sure Nigeria is completely deprived.
Okay, I'm going to take two stories, one from the Vanguard, one from the Punch, and I'll match them. This one from the Vanguard says, PFN to Tinubu, Nigerians are hungry, hasting renewed hope agenda. And the Punch newspaper has this headline, 2027, APC kicks as PDP backs call for Jonathan's return.
Well, unfortunately, it's very disheartening that I don't understand when people still ask for the renewed hope agenda. That what is happening?
Why?
Because have you seen any hope since this government came into power?
It's just 1 year in office.
No. It's not about just 1 year in office.
His daughter said we should give him 3 more years.
Hope comes to trajectory. You will need, if there was going to be hope, you needed to have been seeing the signs of hope. Yes, but we are not seeing the signs. Listen, I will say you're looking like somebody that just had the political appointment.
I'm trying to be objective.
In the last couple of weeks, your responses have been
you get to a point where you're just tired of what is happening, and then you want to try your best to be
positive.
Yes,
people are hungry.
So that is where I am at right now.
There's no
I'm tired
way,
of complaining, so I'm trying to speak.
You're trying to be objective.
Positivity
There's no
into
way
our situation.
we can tackle the food crisis without tackling insecurity.
The food crisis.
The food crisis. We can't tackle insecurity and the fuel subsidy. That there's an interface between insecurity, fuel subsidy removal, and the food crisis. Today's Igbolu market. Now, when you go to the market, the boats that were used to carry a lot of foodstuffs and the cars from the interlands have come buying fuel for between 900 and 1,100. And you don't expect them, that's why you don't expect them not to charge a higher price for transportation. Sure. The person that is coming to sell has bought fertilizer, has maintained through direct or indirect labor, has maintained the farms, paid laborers a higher price because the cost of living has increased. So all that is there's a multiplier effect that ends with you and I, the end users. So that makes it very, very difficult. So you need to look, you don't need to start solving the problem from the end users. You have to solve from the fundamental problem, which is insecurity, this removal of subsidy. What can government help? Now we started for 500 and something, but now we're buying almost 1,000 per litre. So there's a fundamental problem in leadership. Until we get it right, we'll keep shouting. People are look, a bunch of plantain. How much plantain you buy for 1,000 before the bunch? You are buying for 8,000, 7,000, 9,000.
So there's no hope. You're not seeing any light in the end of the tunnel.
Just tighten your seatbelt. I'm not seeing any light.
Okay. How about your take on PDP calling for the return of President Jonathan
in 2027?
2027. APC is kicking against it.
Let me tell you something. This is a narrative from political gladiators. They are testing the microphone. Take it with a pinch of salt.
So I'm going to ask, is this
structure and the constitutional structure and the constitutional powers to check these excesses, but because they have compromised and they have a leadership problem, they would